So you want to be an interim head coach, do you? Well, too bad. It doesn't work. Unless that is you are the Detroit Lions. Let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Before we get into the main part of this video, we're going to do something a little bit different. We upload multiple videos a day, so I thought I would take a look at the comments. Not necessarily of the day, but the comments of the recent. It don't make a lot of sense, but I want to give a couple of shout outs. Instead of just putting them on a screen, let's acknowledge a few of these. If there's questions that maybe you guys want answered, or if there's some just random comment you guys want put in a video, well, here's your chance to do it. We'll do a couple of these, maybe just like one time a day. Detroit Danny, who says that I need to get a framed picture of Darrell Bevell being mobbed by the players after his first win. I like that. Or one with the game ball. Something like that. I think that's a great idea. We do need a new picture for this. I got me and DoseOfDion in there right now. But that is because Matt Patricia used to be in there, but once he was fired, I thought it would just be weird to leave him in there. So now we have that picture there. I do need a picture for that frame anyway, so why not look into it? Shout out to Detroit Danny. And finally, this one comes from my man Jordan, who says, can I make videos on who to root for each week? That's a heck of an idea. We could call it like rooting guide or something. I mean, heck, we got 4 games left of the season. I think that's a pretty cool idea. Obviously, you root for your Detroit Lions, but who else? I like that. I like that. So for playoff implications, who should you root for by week? Maybe we'll do that on a Wednesday. That way it's before Thursday Night Football. Maybe something like that. We'll figure out the day, but that's a good idea. I like that idea. Shout out to Jordan. If you guys want a chance to have your comment in the next video, or the next day, I should say, because it's not going to be every video, and leave a comment down below. Let's get right into it, into the main portion. Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here, and yes, we're back with another video. We're back with the third video today. Let's get it. Let's get the hype in the chat. Let me see some hype in the chat. Sorry, we're not live. I need to calm down. But this is the third video of the day. I'm still super excited after yesterday's win. Look, I'm not a player, so I can continue to be excited about this win. We haven't seen a lot of them. So, again, I'm going to live in the moment. There's only 16 games in a season, man. Unless you make the playoffs, there's only 16 games. So you might as well live every game to the fullest. And that's what I'm going to do. We've only won 5 games this year, so I'm going to live it up, okay? I'm sorry. If people don't like it, I'm sorry. I'm living this game up. We will move on to the Packers, but not yet. Not just yet, because today I want to talk about Darrell Bevell and what history says about what he could do with the Detroit Lions, what his potential could be with the Detroit Lions. Now, historically across the league, interim head coaches maybe don't have the best track record. But for the Detroit Lions, it's actually a different story. Darrell Bevell is 1-0 with the Lions. He has beaten the Chicago Bears, a divisional opponent that we just could not find a way to beat for some reason, whatever reason. We couldn't find a way to beat this team, and finally, we get through them in his first game as Lions head coach. He has 4 games left this season. It's a good start. It's a really good start for his audition. He's got 4 games left against very good teams, so they're going to have to continue to ball out and play very well. Well, let's first talk about interim head coaches across the league. See, usually it doesn't work that well, and we see it usually every single year. We see it this year as well with the Falcons. Certain teams do this. But usually every year you're going to see this. Certain teams will fire their head coach and they'll promote somebody up, and they're, going to get prepared to look for that next guy. Because most of the time, your interim head coach doesn't do much better. Sometimes it's even way, way worse, which isn't always possible because usually you're very bad. If you fire your head coach during the season, you're usually very bad, or you really didn't meet expectations. That's where something really just went wrong within the organization. There was a problem. Whatever. Either way, it's not a good situation. So usually things don't get much better. I mean, maybe you'll win an extra game here or there, and it'll be like, okay, that's great, but this isn't our future. We got to figure something out. For the Detroit Lions, historically, that's a different case. If you're looking across the entire NFL, an article was put out in 2012 that took a look at interim head coaches. It said that those interim head coaches that took over during that season they took over, they won about 39% of their games. Honestly, not terrible to think about 40% of, you won about 40% of your games and you just took over the team that apparently was really bad because they fired their head coach. Not bad. And the next year after that, historically, they win about 48% of their games. That's pretty solid. I mean, you're almost winning half of your games if you keep the head coach after that period. That's pretty solid. It's not great. Been tons of super successful interim head coaches historically. And again, this was an article back in 2012. But that's not actually true with the Detroit Lions. Actually, with the Detroit Lions, it's kind of the opposite. With the Lions, basically our most success has come with interim head coaches. I know it sounds weird, but seriously, I mean, if you go back to the 50s, which is what we're going to do in today's video, I don't want to go back to the 30s because, I mean, man, that's a long, 50s is pushing on its own. We're talking Bobby Lane here, all right? I'm going back to 30s. I'm going way too far at that point. We're going to go 50s. We'll go 50s and up. And we're going to take a look at the most successful head coaches that we've had. And most of these coaches, by win percentage, successful by win percentage, were interim head coaches first. They were an assistant on our team, and they took over as our head coach. It's kind of crazy, but just look at the history here. We'll go all the way back to the 50s, man, with Buddy Parker. Buddy Parker, he won 67% of his games as Lions head coach. The Coach of the Year award 1 year. That was like when the Lions, that was kind of when they were at their peak. I mean, that's probably the best the Lions have been since that time because they've won championships. They were going against the Browns. Man, are we coming back to that? Hold up. Wait, hopefully soon. But interesting thing with Buddy Parker is this, though. He signed as the Lions assistant running back coach. And their head coach actually resigned because I guess there was some issues. Well, their head coach resigned. So they're like, okay, buddy, you take over as their head coach. And he took over, and he didn't look back. Promoted as head coach, winning 67% of the games, 3-1 in the playoffs. It's pretty impressive. Now, keep in mind, there wasn't the same amount of teams there is now. But you can see, look, the Lions don't have a great history. So we're kind of reaching for some of these. They don't have a great history. But when they did have their bright spots, it came through a lot of times interim head coaches. After that, we take a look at a guy like George Wilson. He was another assistant coach on the Detroit Lions. Interesting here is he took over for Buddy Parker. So it was like, okay, who's taking over Buddy? Well, it's going to be George Wilson. He was another assistant coach for the Detroit Lions. He won about 54% of his games. He was 2-0 in the playoffs, and he was another Coach of the Year award winner. Little point I do want to mention here is that you will notice that some of these older guys especially, but you'll notice like there's issues here where you'll have guys like this who've had some success with the Detroit Lions and they'll end up either resigning or they'll get fired. And it's like, okay, there was issues with him in the forwards. Look at Joe Schmidt. Now, he won 55% of his games with the Lions. He did have one playoff appearance as Lions head coach. They lost that game, but it's still, historically for us, pretty darn good. You look at a guy like Joe Schmidt, what's interesting about him is not only was he an assistant, but he was also a player on this team. He was a player on this team for many years with Bobby Lane when they were winning championships. He won 2 championships as a player. He then became an assistant coach in 1966. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more modern here. In 1966, he became basically a linebacker coach. He did a good job. He coached up some really good linebackers. Joe Schmidt, he took over as Lions coach, won 55% of his games, and took us to the playoffs 1 year. Continuing down, our next most successful head coach, Wayne Fontes. It goes all the way to Wayne Fontes in 1988 when Wayne Fontes took over as the Detroit Lions head coach after the coach before was fired during the season. The most creepy thing about this is that coach was fired for being 2-9 with 5 games left in the season. So with 5 games left in the year, he was fired before Wayne Fontes took over. He was another Lions assistant, right? Because he was Lions assistant. I believe he was the defensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. He took over as the Detroit Lions head coach. They were 2-9. He won 2 of the last 5 games. It was enough to get his job back. It was enough to give him another opportunity. His 2 wins came against the Green Bay Packers. He beat them both times. But, I mean, look, you were only 2-3, and he got shut out versus the Vikings in his second game as their head coach. They played Minnesota, and they didn't score a point. But yet, they just saw enough there. He was a player's coach and a motivator. We want to talk about player's coach. I'm just saying, that's kind of what Bevell sounds like a little bit to me. He took over 2-3, and we know the rest. It was really the most success we've had, you could say, maybe in the Super Bowl era. I mean, we won a playoff game. We won a playoff game. What? We blew out the Dallas Cowboys. Everybody knows about Wayne Fontes. He won just under 50% of his games. He was 1 game below 500. I mean, that kind of tells you how our history has been. But Wayne Fontes, maybe our most successful coach in the Super Bowl era, won a playoff game with him. He was an interim head coach. Kind of weird, right? And the way they describe him, kind of strange. Kind of where the whole interim head coach thing dies off. But if you look at the next 2 most successful coaches in terms of winner percentage, you have Bobby Ross, who was a coach somewhere else before, and then you have a guy in Jim Caldwell, same thing. He was an interim head coach, took over for the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning, and then he went to Detroit, and he had some success right away, but he's no longer here. A majority of our most successful head coaches in terms of win percentage since the 50s were interim head coaches. They were a guy that was within the organization and took over. Now, I think there's theories behind that. It's kind of strange, but it's just something with Detroit. And I think one of the biggest theories for me is that, okay, maybe it's because they were within the organization. They saw the problems. They noticed what they were. They took notes of it, kind of like Darrell Bevell is. And they're like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to fix if I ever get the opportunity. And they did that. They came in and they fixed it. They knew the problems from within because they were already there. And then they got their opportunity to share their ideas, to share their vision of how this thing would work. And they made it happen. Now, you go kind of far back, it starts to go a little dicey because now you're talking about less teams in the NFL. It's kind of a different NFL world, right? The NFL is different today. But something about being an interim head coach for the Detroit Lions, for most teams, this wouldn't be good because like, oh no, history says you're not going to work out. For Darrell Bevell, history is actually the opposite. History tells you that Darrell Bevell, historically, based on how we've done, this is a chance to find a good coach for us. I mean, it sounds nuts, but it's there. I mean, our most successful head coaches, a majority of them were an interim head coach for us. And I'm not trying to, make too big of a deal out of it, but I do want to also make sure that we don't just discredit or just look past him as if this guy can't be our actual next head coach. I mean, seriously, you're playing 5 playoff teams, basically, maybe not the Bears anymore, but I mean, they're still in the race like we are. You're playing 5 playoff teams to end the year. Okay, you're playing 3 divisional teams. So you get to play all 3 divisional teams again. He has an opportunity to really prove himself here. There's no reason that we should look at this and say, hey, this is a legitimate audition. What's the difference between this guy and a coordinator? What's the difference between you giving a job to a guy that's been in the organization that's you've seen for 5 games, we'll see how the 5 games go, and a guy that's never been a head coach before? If you're going to give a job to a coordinator who's never been a head coach before, and you're kind of taking that shot in the dark and you're hoping that it's better, then we at least have to acknowledge that there's an opportunity here for Darrell Bevell in front of him. There's an opportunity. The great thing about Bevell is he has the best advantage of all. He's got 5 games with players playing with their jobs on the line. He's got 5 games to prove himself. No one else is going to get that opportunity. It's a beautiful opportunity, and he started it off the right way. And you know what? You can look at this just another win. This is a big win. We could not beat this team. This is a big win for him. On the road, what they say, last time since 2014, that's a big win. Now the question is, how can he finish off this year? We got to acknowledge that there's a legitimate shot that he could be our next head coach, how this goes. Think of all the weird things that we're trying to figure out. What's the salary cap going to look like next year? Who has any idea? What kind of coach would want to come to Detroit? With the weird salary cap, how many guys are going to take that on in Detroit knowing that, hey, guess what? If I get fired, think about it like this. Look at Matt Patricia's situation. This guy's a defense coordinator. He's got he's got interest from a lot of teams to be a head coach. Takes over Lions head coach, and it doesn't work. Falls flat. Now we'll look at him. Don't you think it's going to be even more difficult for him to find that coordinator job again? I feel like it's going to be difficult for him in a way. Because teams are looking at that saying, oh no, he may never get another opportunity to be a head coach. May never get that opportunity again. For other coaches looking at this, they can say, okay, yeah, it's a risk. It's a very big risk here because we don't even know the salary cap. There's a lot of questions in here. And from the Lions organization side of things, they don't know what kind of money they're going to have to work with. They don't know what's going to happen this offseason or what next season will look like. If you're looking for consistency, at least this guy has stability in the locker room. This guy has stability. He's been here. He's done it. Now the question is, how can he finish off these last 4 games? Can he get through these last 4 games and make a legitimate case that he should be our next head coach? And I know what people are saying, well, if he goes 4-1, I'd fire him. If this guy goes 4-1, I'm telling you right now, I'm not firing this guy. No question. How can you do that? How could you fire a guy that goes 4-1 in his last 5 games? Like, do you guys realize who we're playing? We're not playing scrubs on the way out. This was a team that was 4-7, that got shut up by the Panthers, that got blown out by the Texans. If he finished 4-1, he's my head coach next season. He'll have an opportunity to prove himself. And we got to at least acknowledge that hey, history tells you this could actually be not a bad, terrible idea for the Lions if he's able to do it for the next 4 games. And we got 4 games to prove it. We'll see how they do. I'm not trying to jump up and say that's going to be great, but I just think we should understand that there is that possibility out there. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out. Are you kidding me right now? I had to put my helmet on for this one. Are you kidding? Look at this. Look at all these members. What? Yo, hey, shout out to all the members, man. Look how many All-Pro members there are. Like, literally, it's the whole screen, dog. This is crazy. The patrons, of course, the Hall of Fame members, man. Y'all got the gold color. It's kind of yellow, but it's supposed to be gold. Shout out to all the members, man. If you want to be a part of this, all you got to do is join the channel. But there are perks that come with it. Stay locked in the community tab if you are a member because that's where a lot of information comes out. I appreciate all of you. What?